I bet you'd tell me something that would help me understand the power of the wisdom before I'm buried in this land. Fools crow, fools crow, fools crow.
It wasn't friendly, but it was safe. And I would go there and, you know, when I started going, I got tired of that because that wasn't my scene. I wasn't into the whole disco dancing thing and all that. And so you know, I started to go to some straight bars and hear some bands that, you know, I knew, feeling I'd be safe there with them. And, you know, just kept building like that. But when I walked in, you know, I was always sitting in the darkest place with my head bowed down like that. I started smoking cigarettes, so I had something to do, you know. And so at that point, when I understood, you know, the gift and the burden concept, I just straightened right up and started, you know, being proud of who I was. It was a slow process, but I started being proud. And, you know, started writing more songs after being there. But that was, again, 1983. So I didn't learn who Fool's Crow was and the importance of him until 1988. And I was working in a school library. And you know, I would go through the Native American section wherever I was just to see what they had. And they had a book called Fool's Crow, and I pulled it out and started looking through it, and I was like, holy shit, this is the man I went to see, you know. And I called Charlie, who was the guy that gave me the information that came through Baltimore. And I called him and I said, what was the name of the medicine man that had you in the sweat? He said, it was Fool's Crow. So, you know, it was like an epiphany when I read his biography. And then in 1988, you know, I wanted to go back out there and get more information now that I knew, you know, more how to act, you know, in that culture. I wanted to really go back and talk with him some more, but he crossed over before I could do that. And I wrote Fool's Crow when I found out that he had crossed over. I was sitting at piano at my family's Dewey Beach house, and we had a piano there, and it was just, you know, it just came together like that. I mean, you know, a lot of songs I have to struggle with, but that just boom, it was right there. And the only thing I ever changed was the bridge that I sent you. That's why I had you play the version that you played. And, you know, it was powerful. And I started doing what I call spiritual archaeology. Because with the mystery beads, which the LGBT community calls Two Spirit, with the mystery beads, the information that you get in most of the books are told from the white culture's perspective. And so much so, or the Christian perspective, and so much so that a lot of tribes just denied that they even had that tradition, that it even existed. And like the Cherokee were one of them that I don't know if they still do or not, but at that time they just denied that it even existed. The Apache were another one. At least to whoever was talking to them, they denied it. So they did go kind of underground because of the church and because of the government, because that tradition was another thing I learned through spiritual archaeology and piecing historical things and historical notes with the spiritual information I was being given, that when Europeans came to America, one of the first traditions that they tried to wipe out was the various mystery bead traditions from
Mm-hmm.
culture to, from nation
Mm-hmm.
to nation to nation. And I view that as, if you're doing martial arts and you want to defeat your opponent, you find his weak point, and that's how you take him down. You take him off balance, or her off balance, and you're able to defeat your opponent that way. Well, the other thing I learned, and that was from various things that I read and from, again, the spirit world, was that we were balance keepers. That's
Mm-hmm.
we come from the place of in between, which is, that's one of the most sacred places to come from, and it's where kind of like all spiritual people try to reach that point. And it's a place of not day and not night, the dusk and the dawn, and that's when most ceremonies are really done. Is at those times of the day, like Sweat Lodge, everyone I've ever been to. They started the fire during the day, and then you went in as it,
Mm-hmm.
became night. And I'm sure there were other situations, but that was my experience. And so that's exactly what happened to Native American culture. They took this tradition and made it evil and made it negative and laughable and feared,
Mm-hmm.
because, it was devil stuff to the Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took away the balance. And then after that, they pretty much just marched across the Turtle Island and took over every tribe, because
Mm-hmm.
that balance wasn't there anymore
Yeah.
to keep the people up.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things that I learned, and that I know Fool's Crow prayed with that pipe with me. He
Mm-hmm.
may have not been present with me, but that was made clear to me too, that he didn't have to be right there with me physically to
Mm-hmm.
pray with me.
Oh.
And so I got to believe that's why all these things started opening up to me and coming together, and, just one thing after another. And it led me back to my own ancestors
Mm-hmm.
to, to understand and to research as much as I could, um, what the old European tribal people, and earth connected people is a better term, what traditions they had.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, there was, in some of the Germanic tribes, there was a thing called the heavenly twin. And, that was a shamanistic position for the Germanic people. And, it was the same as the mystery bead. It's what it was. So, and then, I later on I learned about Boudica, the Celtic warrior woman. It really makes me laugh when, that clown that's in charge of defense now, doesn't want women involved in the army, because good
Oh
luck with
dear.
Boudica. You know,
Oh dear. Yeah.
she defeated the Romans, like two confrontations, two wars. She defeated them and sent them packing back to Italy. So, or back to Rome anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably forgetting some stuff, and I know I've talked about this before, but you know, getting to, before we run out of time, getting to Until I Dance,
Until I
which was
Dance. Yeah,
another something.
I was just gonna ask you about that because what you're talking about now leads so beautifully into that because
Mm,
you're talking about ceremony in the song.
right.
So can you explain that a little bit more?
Right. Well, I started piecing together and started to really get a handle on my own ego, and realized that, everybody has to do the journey that I took in some way, shape, or form in order to, resolve their issues or gain strength, or, multiple reasons that you would take that journey. And it's it's the hero's journey. It's what um, Joseph Campbell writes about, in his books. And, it's where you don't know what's going to come about, but you're willing to jump into the abyss to find out. And who knows if you're going to come out okay, or, you know, you're going to be destroyed on that journey. And like once you come through that journey, um, you know, you've done your obligation to the people and to yourself. And it was, so I started viewing the my journey and the mystery bead journey as a rite of passage for mystery beads.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important that I did that journey. So, as some of your people know, I'm a post-op transsexual. I don't put on a lot of airs of that, but that was the rite of passage that was offered by this culture. So Campbell said you have an obligation to take, your rite of passage ceremony with the culture that you come from. And once you do that, your only obligation is to follow your bliss. And that alone gave me strength too, to just say, I'm not going to do all these stereotypical female things that they expect me to do, because I said I want to transition into a woman in this culture, and I started looking to women that I admire, like Frida Kahlo and Georgie O'Keeffe, and any Boudica, and any number of the Cheyenne warrior women, and gaining strength from them, and seeing myself in them instead of seeing myself in,
Mm-hmm.
Madonna, or,
Mm-hmm.
Cher, or any number of other people that the drag queens always emulated. And that was another point where I was gathering strength. And so the whole point of Until I Dance, and I changed it to Until We Dance, like on American Holocaust, it says Until I Dance. But, I felt the need to change it. And I also made the bridge a little more interesting than it was on American Holocaust. And it was that everybody needs to do their own dance, or just dance to find out. Dancing as in praying. I don't know if you're familiar with Tank Girl at all, the movie Tank Girl. I know I sound like I'm skipping all over the place. Tank Girl is like a fictional story, futuristic, apocalyptic. Things are all messed up, and whoever controls the water controls the people.
Mm-hmm.
And there, that whole good and evil thing was going on in that film, and it had a lot of comedy in it, but there were these creatures that were human hybrids that the army had developed, so they could be better soldiers. And they were like, best way I can describe it is they were like kangaroo people. And really cool. Ice-T played one of the characters.
Oh, wow.
To give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
And so the main character, Tank Girl, and this other character, Jet, who were traveling together and trying to free this girl that had been taken. They were in this meeting because the people were finally starting to trust them. And so they were sitting around getting ready to eat dinner. And so Tank Girl like bows her head, very properly to say prayers with whoever's going to lead the prayers. And all of a sudden they hear this music going and all this drumming and stuff, and chanting and stuff. And they look up from the table, and everybody's in the center of the room, like dancing around. And so, the image was, that's prayer. Dancing is prayer.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
so I got that
Beautiful.
right somehow,
Beautiful.
but
Yeah.
And so that's what it was about. And I think one of the best
Mm-hmm.
compliments I was ever given was from a grandmother who asked me, I was playing somewhere, Earth Day thing or something, and she asked me, um, would I do Until I Dance? And I
Oh,
said, of course, grandmother, of course I
no.
would.
Yeah.
And then she explained why she wanted me to do it. And she said her granddaughter was largely inspired, excuse me, by that song, to go do her first vision quest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I
Wow.
mean,
Oh, that's such a
it was like,
sweet compliment.
that was
Whoa.
my Grammy,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
you know,
wow. Mm-hmm. We don't have much time, Georgie. We're going to need to wrap it up.
we
But
never do.
the next, on this musical journey, the next song will be Woman in a Man's Suit.
Yep.
So we might, go out with that after we end our conversation here.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything about that song? And that will be like how we start out the next part 3 next week.
Right. Well, when Fool's Crow led me to go back to my own people, and understand them back when they were earth connected people and lived in the traditional ways, in respect for the rest of creation. My grandmother came to me in a dream that wasn't a dream. I mean, it was real. It was real. And I'll explain all that when we talk about it. But she wound up taking me to the old country and showing me all these things that really, now that we're in the times that we're in, are really starting to happen right now. So that's what that's about. And I had found, when I started really looking into my ancestors and wanting to understand more, I found this picture of my grandmother, which is kind of an icon for me now. It's on the cover of Woman in a Man Suit. She's on the back cover standing there with me. Mm. And that was an epiphany for me too. And part of my journey was seeing that picture. And when I was a little kid, I was a kid that looked through old photograph albums and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I never saw that picture.
Oh,
so
interesting. Yeah.
Either because it didn't interest me or it didn't click with me or whatever. But when I needed to see it, I saw it. And I asked my mother about it. I said, oh, yeah, your grandmother and the neighbor were just clowning around, because there's pictures of the neighbor dressed in her husband's suit. And,
wow.
But it was the time that it came to me, and everything was really important to me. And the time that the dream came to me was really important to me. And, I guess we'll find out in the next
episode. Georgie Jessup, thank you so much for gifting us with your story. And
I hope I made sense.
You did. And it's, it's the Mystery Beads journey. I'm really honored that you're, gifting us with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
I hope it helps some people, especially in the trans world.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to put on the song now. Carolyn's got it queued up, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Georgie.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. What is it? Love? There we go.
Spring of 68, angels drove my grandmom home. She lived a peaceful life. The life she lived was a shaman's poem. All the way to heaven's gate, God was there to take her hand. she's back again. She spoke with words I could understand. She said,
somewhere in the middle, there is love that you know.
I know.
Between the well and the sacred tree, the roots are strong.
I'll grow.
Let it flow.
Let it flow, yeah. The woman in the man's suit is smiling down on me. Woman in the man's suit is smiling down on me. Now don't Alicia come, take my hand and walk with me down the path to Yggdrasil. Knowledge comes from this sacred tree. Call out to your ancestors, they speak, you receive your name. You'll see the love will grow upon this rock. You will make your claim. She said,
Somewhere in the middle, there is love that you know.
I know.
Between the well and the sacred tree, the roots are strong.
I'll grow.
Let it flow.
I'll let it flow, yeah. The woman in the man's suit is smiling down on me. I know the woman in the man's suit is smiling down on me. I see the sacred tree. I know on one's wait for me. I'll drink from its healing well. I read the runes, now I can In a dream that sealed my fate, she took me to Alsace-Lorraine. I saw the burning ground where mighty oak fell to Charlemagne. She showed me everything, the good, the bad, the in-between. We walked and talked with love. To heal this pain comes a cleansing rain. She said,
Somewhere in the middle, there is love that you know.
I know.
Between the well and the sacred tree, the roots are strong.
I'll grow.
Just let it flow.
Let it flow. Gonna let it flow. Oh, yeah. The woman in the man's suit is smiling down on me. Yeah, the woman in the man's suit is smiling down
Woman in a Man's Suit to start out this musical journey with Georgie Jessup. And I want to welcome Georgie Jessup to Moccasin Tracks.
Hey, glad to be back.
Yes, we hear you. You made it here.
I made it here. Oh,
Yeah, great. Very
yes,
good.
I did good.
You did good. We're still, like just that last little bit is playing for our listeners.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love the way this music came together.
Yeah, I love like the co-producer's idea was for the pedal steel.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and my idea was the accordion, which was it's kind of like America and the old country,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And besides, it's telling your story, this musical journey.
It's a opus or something like that. It's a
Yeah,
suite.
it really is.
Yeah, it keeps exploding.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what it does. It
Yeah.
explodes.
Yeah, kind of like the dream.
Yeah, so, wow, you had a dream before you wrote this piece or after?
Before.
Yeah.
So the song was in kind of trying to explain the dream in song.
Yeah.
And tell it. Yeah. And log it in that sense on my Woman in a Man Suit album.
Yes.
And there was up your way, I think in Massachusetts, actually, there's a company called, I think it's called Broken Arrow. And they're a PR company.
Mm-hmm.
And they promote musicians and stuff. And, they're the real deal. You hire them basically to promote your stuff. So I wanted to give this album every chance I could. And so I contacted the guy because it was Powderfinger. I take that back. That was the name of the company, which is a Neil Young song. So I'm thinking, Neil Young, he's pretty cool. And I think Neil Young would like me if he met me. And I certainly like him. And I said, well, these people got to be cool if they called their company Powderfinger. So I contacted him and I got permission to send the album up. And he said, well, give me a couple weeks and then, call me back again. And so I gave him a couple weeks and I called him back and he said, oh, I can't promote an album that's all about transsexuals. And as a matter of fact, the title cut is not about transsexualism. It's about a dream, and so, it's amazing how many people, are like blind to what's going on,
Yeah,
or just don't care enough.
Well, they just put up those walls. They don't want to hear their, fears, paranoia, whatever it is. I don't know. But
it is.
Yeah. So tell us about the dream.
Well, as I told you when we did Fool's Crow, that I went to South Dakota to seek an elder's opinion, stories, whatever, about what the Winte tradition meant. And so that was in 1983. And things, as I said, started happening and coming together for me. And one of them was that, Fool's Crow was kind of whispering in my ears that I needed to go back and look at my own ancestors. And so I had started doing that. I had this dream in 1988, and in it, and when I say dream, there's dreams, you find yourself in naked in a crowd or something. It's a dream, and maybe it means something, maybe it's just a dream. But this was like it was really happening, and based on what I found out, I believe it really was happening. So in this quote unquote dream, my grandmother came to, well, I got up out of bed and I walked down the hall. I was living with my folks at that time. And I walked down the hall into the kitchen, and the whole family was sitting around the kitchen table. And my grandmother had her back to me, and she was holding an infant baby. And she turned around and handed it to my aunt, who was her oldest child. And then she took me to the old country in the spiritual trip, and she showed me all these things that were, the only thing I can describe them as is apocalyptic. And one of the things that I saw was the wall in Germany coming down before it actually came down. When it came down, I recognized it. I was like, oh, that's what that was.
Oh, wow.
And so, by the way, my brother's oldest son was born right after the stream. So,
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, she took me and showed me all this stuff, and she showed me the world tree and some other symbols that were pretty important. And then towards the end of the dream, I was kind of a little concerned, because all this seemingly bad stuff was happening. And she said, it's okay. We have to go through this. Once you go through this, it'll be okay. So I'm hoping she's referring to right now, because it certainly wasn't that bad until right now. So I'm assuming that's what she's was talking about and warning me about and trying to help me about. But just as she was finishing up, she said what sounded to me like a common English name or something. And she said Donna Leesman to my ears. And so I wrote it down. And when I woke up the next day, I went to the library. And well, first I looked in our own Maryland phone book. Remember phone books?
I do.
Yeah. And I looked it up in there, and I couldn't find a Donna Leesman. And because I was, what do you got? What do you got to tell me?
You're right.
And so then when I got up for the day, I went up to the local library, and they had like different states phone books. And so I looked through them, and I didn't see anything. So that was in 1988. And during this time period, I had begun really to transition physically, and it was becoming evident. And I started doing my music as my, what did the kids say? As my, they have a word that they use. I can't remember. The trans people as my real self, for the lack of what I can't think of. And so I was doing the music and stuff, but I was still working my day job. I actually bound my breast and stuff like that to go to work. And I was having electrolysis done, and I saw a lot of trans people that never had the electrolysis done before they transitioned, and it just looked stupid to me. And I thought I better take care of this. Plus, it's like getting tattoos all over your face. It's pretty intense. The pain is pretty intense. So I figured, well, maybe I need to feel that pain if this is real, or I'll just say, I don't like this and stop, So I had gone through most of that in the early part of the 90s, to where I didn't need makeup, to hide my 5 o'clock shadow. And so anyway, I was still wrestling with whether I was going to go and do the SRS, which is sex reassignment surgery. And, I was really, really kind of I wanted to make sure that I was right with it and solid with it. And there was, where there wasn't going to be any turning back.
Mhm.
And, so I was not only dealing with the idea of having my body changed drastically. I mean, it was already changing because I was taking hormones and such. But, that's the big change, right?
Mhm.
And I was wrestling with that from a physical sense, but also from a spiritual sense, because I was in a relationship at that time with a gay woman, bi woman, mainly a gay woman. And she was a very spiritual influence on me. And we did American Holocaust together, by the way.
Mm. Mhm.
And we, and so on the spiritual end, she was like way ahead of me at that time. And she was saying, well, there's, you're doing something spiritually wrong by changing your body. And there's no need to change your body. And which ultimately is true. But, we're living in a world where the medical community and the legal community was saying, we'll put an F on your license if you go through our ritual, and rite of passage is what I'm trying to think of. And that's indeed what having the surgery is. It's a rite of passage into quote unquote trans womanhood. And, the courts up until recently respected that. And I think most of the courts still do. But, now if I had to get my passport renewed, I wouldn't be allowed to have an F on it. And, and probably my license, although I live in Maryland, which is a blue state, but eventually, if they get their way, they're going to stop that too. So, we're just freaks to them, But I was trying to balance my spiritual side with the culture that I was born into, which admittedly is completely dysfunctional, which we've talked about before. I was trying to balance those two. And so ultimately I went ahead and had the surgery in 1998. So I waited a long time before I actually went through. So this dream came at a really important time in my life. But in 1996, I went to South Dakota I wanted to do my first vision quest. And as you know, when you commit to doing a ceremony, you do 4. And at least in Lakota way, you do. And so that was going to be the first of my fasting for crying for a vision. And so this woman, Charlene was her name, her brother agreed to meet me out there. And he was going to be my helper on my quest. And so he is from Massachusetts and from West Brookfield, Massachusetts. And apparently there's a small library there, and they had all these Lakota artifacts. And they came from the grave diggers when they looted the bodies.
Yeah.
And Guy was his name, and Guy talked to the curator of the library, and they agreed that they would give them back to the Lakota, but they just didn't want to give them to anybody. That if he could find somebody that they could be transferred to, then you know, they'd be more than happy to give them back. So we stopped at Wounded Knee. I had been there before in '83, but Guy wanted to, you know, put some prayer ties out for the spirits and pay his respects. And that day there were some other people there, and he got to talking to them and stuff. And they told him about Alex White Plume. And Alex White Plume, he was a big deal on the res, and I guess he still is politically and socially. And he had a white people's dude ranch, if you will, you know, Indian dude ranch, where white people came, or anybody really came. And he had, I don't know, like 4 or 5 teepees set up. And these were the huge ones, you know, like that you could drive the truck of a Mack truck into, you know. That's how big they are. And so his son had all the kids, or had all the, not kids, but the people out on a ride. Excuse me. And so, you know, the camp was empty, really. And we had a teepee that was actually Charlene's, Guy's sister. And we were going to take that down and set it up. And he said, you know, you can just stay in one of the teepees. And so we went down, and, you know, he helped us, you know, pick one out or whatever. And he said, when you get settled, I want you to come up to the campfire and meet my relatives from Germany. And I was like, okay. And I know, you know, when Native people refer to their relatives, they can be blood or not blood, you know. And apparently I realized, you know, that these people were important to Alex and his wife. And so I went up to meet him. And we were sitting around talking, and I was asking him questions about if there were any, you know, people that still kind of followed the old traditional ways, you know, that weren't necessarily new agey. Because, you know, most of the European medicine stuff it comes from a new agey kind of Western European interpretation, you know. And I didn't want that, you know. I wanted, you know, I wanted somebody to, when I went to see Fool's Crow, I wanted somebody who was a traditional elder, you know. So I was very leery of new agey people, and I was a little skeptical of these people. And so we were sitting around the campfire, and the guy, it was a huge campfire. And we started talking about all, you know, what are the, you know, Black Forest, what's that like? You know, well, it's very similar to the Black Hills. And, you know, the Black Forest is where all those European fairy tales, if you will, come from. Really, their myths come from. And so at that point, before she even answered me, my grandmother's voice just popped in my head. Now, the dream was in '98. It wasn't like I was having dreams about her since then. Or even before that, I had one dream when she died, you know, and it scared me. And, you know, so now my grandmother is saying, ask them. And so I told him the story about the dream. And I got to the part of Donna Leesman. And the woman stood up, and she got in front of me, and, you know, between me and the campfire. And she said, I think what your grandmother was saying was don't release him. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I mean, I recognized it. I didn't even hesitate. Yes, that is it. Yes. And So I get chills every time I tell this, but I got chills there, and then she went on to tell me what it meant, and she said, well, and she looked up to the sky, and you know how those Lakota skies are,
Mm.
and she said it's like the star, it's spectacular like the stars, and she spoke broken English, so you could tell that she was thinking in German and then translating it to something that I could understand.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, it's like spectacular, like the stars, but I think your grandmother was giving you your spirit name. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, the Lycian part is pretty beautiful, you know. And she said, I think she was calling you beautiful thunder. And again, I
Wow.
was like,
Wow.
oh shit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, with my
Yeah.
voice, and
Aw.
in my younger days, I wasn't very bad looking either. So, it was like, okay, beautiful thunder, that makes perfect sense. Well, I was high, as far as not high literally, but I was high from
Mm-hmm.
what had just transpired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I the next day when we got up to leave and we were heading to Bear Butte, I made her write down the word donation and spell it out
Mm-hmm.
how it would be spelled in German,
Mm-hmm.
how it would be presented in a book, in German or whatever. And so she did that, and I kept it with me. And I went on to do my vision quest, but it was more like hey, thank you. I appreciate this. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
And thank you, Creator,
Aw.
And a lot of other things happened during that whole thing that, I don't need to go into.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote it down, and when I got home, and I think it might have been when I was recovering from surgery, but I'm not sure because that was 96, surgery was 98. But I called a friend of mine's son who was minoring in German at the University of Maryland. And I said, look, I'm just going to spell this for you. I'm not going to tell you what it means or what I was told about the word. Please find out what you can find out about it. Because I'm like one of those, I guess I should have been born in Iowa. Isn't that the show me state? And so he, he took the information down, and I didn't hear from him, and I kind of just forgot about it, And, I got a phone call, and it was him, and he said, remember you asked me to check that word out? And I said, yeah. And he said, first I went to the library, and we have a pretty extensive German English library for the German department. And he said, I looked through all the German English dictionaries, and I could not find that word. And I was like, okay, new age, And so he keeps on talking about it, and he said, I went to all my professors that were in the department, teaching German in the language department, and none of them knew the word. So now I'm even more like, okay,
Yeah.
I got duped, And so then he said, I went to my grandparents' house, and they were straight from Germany. And he said, I was talking to him about it, and I told him all the hard time I was having finding that word. And he says, my grandfather says, you won't find that word in a dictionary. It's a colloquialism. So he said, essentially, he told me eureka. And the reason he said eureka is because it's also used if you're trying to explain a difficult concept to somebody,
Oh, yeah.
and then you see in their face that they understand what you mean. It would be like donation, like now you've got it, now
Yeah.
you've got
Oh,
it,
wow.
And so it was not only was my grandmother giving me a name, she was also saying like, now you've got it, now you've
Right.
got it.
Yeah. Oh.
And
Oh.
so he went on to say the eureka thing, and I said, well, she interpreted it as spectacular, and he said, well, that's a better interpretation. So I mean, and then essentially it is a colloquialism, but that is Old German.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's Alsatian, and like Lakota and a lot of Iroquois and some of the other nations in this country, there's very few of the young ones that speak it anymore. And it's the same thing in Alsace. Like a lot of people speak French or they speak German, and then so the old German isn't really used. But it occurred to me, my grandmother used to talk to the kid's grandmother on his father's side across the fence in our yards, and they would be speaking German, and I'd be out there playing in the yard, and I'd hear them talking and stuff.
Wow.
And I realize now that my grandmother was speaking old German, but this woman understood the old German, because German now came from Old German.
Yeah, sure.
So,
sure. Oh, what a beautiful story. What a beautiful story, Georgie. I just want to encourage you to maybe talk a little bit about the next song on this musical journey.
All right.
Which is Reluctant Phoenix.
Yes.
I think it needs a little bit of an introduction. Because it's really an important piece.
Because, throughout my life dealing with the gender issues, I hate gender dysphoria. It's, it just, when I was dealing with it, I would often get depressed because I saw no way out of it. And, I had a friend who suffered serious abuse, and she was at times suicidal, but, she used to say to me, well, you don't, when she'd be crying and going on, and she was usually drunk when she did, she'd say, you don't know, you grew up with Warden June Cleaver, and you don't have any. Well, and I used to say to her, but you have somebody to blame. I have nobody to blame for gender dysphoria. It's either from Creator or it's from the devil, but it wasn't from my parents or my family.
Okay, how about if we play the music, because we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to play the song.
Maybe I should kill myself. Could do it with some pills. Blow my brains out on the wall. Maybe poison's cleaner still. Or maybe I should run away. I could simply disappear. I would go where they can't find me. Who would shed a tear? But I love this life and all it gives, and I love the morning song. I love the way the sun shines through my dress while I sing along. Another day, I find a way to carry on. If you look inside my heart, you will find some love, some pain. You'll find someone who has found a way to be singing with the rain. Maybe I have pissed them off. If I'm living, then it's true. But late at night when I'm all alone, they're the ones who bring the blues. 'Cause I love this life and all it gives, and I love the morning song. Love the way the sun shines through my dress while I sing along. Another day, I find a way to carry on.
And you are listening to Reluctant Phoenix from the CD Philosopher Dogs with Georgie Jessup. This is part of the musical journey.
I'll carry on. I'm gonna carry on. I'm making my way. I'm gonna carry on. I'll take another day. I'm gonna carry on. I'm making my way. I'm gonna carry on. I'll take another day. Gonna carry on. I'm making my way. I'll take another day.
Such a beautiful song, really, Georgie.
Thank you.
Really.
You know, my mom surprised me because she really likes that. She liked that song a lot.
Oh, wow. Yeah. She
And that,
understood it. She understood it,
yeah,
you know?
but you know, 32 to 50% suicide in transgender world,
Yeah. You know,
and it's going to get worse with
you talked
everything that's going
a
on.
lot about the bullying, the rejection, the
Yep,
lack of health care,
yep.
you know, depression, going, you